about the things we just discussed. What was it that you thought you were looking at when you were looking at these slides of material of unknown origin?
Well,
prior to meeting Jay.
we were looking at extremely minute microglial cells. We knew that they were eukaryotic. However, they were unusual in the sense that their cytoplasm and their internal organization, the organelle structures were fused, such as dictyosomes to mitochondria, things like that. And we had no idea what we were looking at. The original contention made by the individuals next to me was that we were looking at some type of biological warfare material, an intermediate, and they had more experience. They have more experience than me involving such matters. So, and being that I was new, I was letting them take the lead.
That's great. Now, let's talk a little bit. The second one was, tell us a little bit more in detail about the physical aspects of preparing for an entry into the atmosphere.
Fine. Well, we would undergo a medical examination, at least during the early time frame of the introductions, the 92 time frame, 91 to 92, when we were doing introductions. We had regular systematic medicals by a physician. Following that, we would be suited, we would be catheterized, plugged, and suited. Communication apparatus was placed on our heads. We had a cooling system set up. It was, for all intents and purposes, it was a spacesuit. It was a total encapsulated suit, something like what you would find in a NASA facility. Not so much something that you would see, well, for instance, at USAMRIID or CDC, that type of level 4 suit. It was more of a regular space-type suit with joints. We were suited up, we were pressurized, and then walked with our cooling system and our hosing down a ramp into the ambassadorial suite. Following that, we were led up a gantry-way, which had been moved into position by the clean sphere, which had been previously rotated up through an iris through the floor. He was held actually below the ambassadorial suite level, and that was raised up as needed. What they did with him down there, he didn't say, and they didn't tell me. It was not a need-to-know issue. Apparently, they dealt with the cleaning of the sphere and all of that down there. The regular housed animal maintenance, as they treated him. We would be led up the gantry-way. The hoses would be hooked into an interior system inside the doorway, which was exterior to the clean sphere. And it was called the exterior system, in fact. But then we would be led in. The door would be closed, and we would be pressurized inside of the gantry-way. Following that, there was a drum system that was set up. Once there was an equal pressurization between the gantry-way and the clean sphere, we would then be told to proceed forward. I would raise a hand in acknowledgement. We were not supposed to talk at the time at all because nothing verbal around the specimen, around the J-rod. Why, I was never told, but we were not supposed to talk around the J-rod. I moved the drum system and re-hooked a secondary set of hosing inside the clean sphere, checked the pressurization, and once that was done, the door to the clean sphere would be closed behind me, and I would presume that the pressurization remained the same in the gantry-way. Following that, I would do my business inside of the clean sphere involving contacting the J-rod and removing the samples.
And what was the reason you were removing samples?
We were removing samples to attempt a treatment, a full diagnosis and a treatment for a paraprotein-related monoclonal gammopathy of uncertain significance type disorder, which had various attributes to it, among which were a cocaine type presence to the J-rod, cocaine syndrome type presence, and certain genetic issues involving chromosome 5 and 17, which led us to Charcot-Marie tooth disorder, and their glycoprotein, their antifreeze glycoprotein problems. They were essentially they were losing heat because of the problems at their axonal ridges. They were not transmitting the energy, something like a dystrophy. And when the action potential goes down a nerve, well, their action potentials were dying at the synapse. They were also losing energy because there was a demyelination process underway. That demyelination process was, well, since the Q94 document, was tied to a CMT1A-like problem, the Charcot-Marie tooth problem called PMP22, which is a protein number 22, which an overexpression of that gene causes a greater demyelination. We tied that to the demyelination issue involving the promoters for the PMP22. Those promoters, there's two promoters for it, were selectively deselected with the use of TFOs, or triplex-forming oligonucleotides. It's essentially an ssDNA vector expression system that we're using. Oops.
Doesn't that...
You're staring at me, Bill. I'm sorry.
Bill, one thing when you're speaking, when you don't sort of make any noises, just nod. That's good.
When I'm not.
Sometimes we're going, ooh, ah-ee. That's a...
Okay.
Just keep used to nodding. Great.
That's all he's been doing is nodding. I shouldn't.
All right. So do you want to simplify?
I'm sorry, Bill.
No, I don't. Actually, no. I think that's fine.
I'm sorry, Bill.
I actually understood some of it.
That's all right. Doesn't that interfere the demyelination process? Okay, isn't that similar to conditions that humans sometimes have, like, what is it, muscular dystrophy?
Well, yeah, except for he wasn't forming plaques.
Okay.
He wasn't forming plaques. He was simply demyelinating, repairing the demyelination area with the immune system. They've got a cell-mediated immune system, humoral system, just like we have. The cells are different. They've got Philopodia, but very strange looking blood-like material. But it's like it. But that's why we use the term analog so much, because it was different. It was different.
Can we talk a little bit about some generalities around the building in which you worked? The sort of, how many floors it was, where it was located,
Sure.
How you got there.
You want an experience of Site 4, watch the Andromeda strain. Except for there's a little more color inside of Site 4. They've got a nice orange stripe on the wall, and they've got a red and blue stripe on the floor, which gives you general directions depending upon the floor you're on, and you can't move without getting stopped anyway. Now we're talking separate to the groom facility here. I'm aware of several floors at the groom facility, and then finally the majority of the hot stuff was taken over to Site 4. We're talking 4 basic levels. The first level, and they're coded 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, and then finally where he was stored as 4.5. And that 4.5 designation was painted on the wall for him because 4 and 5 is 9.
Right.
That's why, in fact, they built 9 hangars on the Galileo and Sidekick levels, the 4.1 level. The 4.2 level contained the looking glass, Alice's glass. In fact, outside of the door for the major facility, there's a white rabbit with a clock. A very large, it's a statue that's probably about that tall, and it's held above the doorway. It's wired above the doorway. The looking glass, I find out, is one of the ERBs. It's an Einstein-Rosenbridge promoter. It uses some form of, this is found out, Jesus Christ, in the last 2 weeks. I'm asking the right questions there, I guess. It's composed of a spherical, spinning, arced, rectangular solid matrix of nickel, cadmium, and barium. There is a spinning disk underneath it, which is supercooled. Into this is injected into the center of these spinning and I'm not a physicist. Spinning disks is injected an argon gas. Into that is injected some type of repulsion matter. It's a gravity repulsion matter. They are obtaining the gravity repulsion matter from the heavy materials that have been obtained from the J rods, the 115 variety material. And apparently when they bombard it with enough electromagnetism, this stuff repels gravity and it turns into some sort of exotic matter. They spin it fast enough, it opens, or they can see through it. And that is, from what I understand, the great prize in what's going on in the world right now, are those devices. Why do you think the British are running around Iraq right now looking for the climatological records that are just happen to be disappeared out of the Baghdad Museum with the rest of the cylinder seals? And you're going to see some cylinder seals today too when I show you some report.
So Dan, does that mean when they're engaging this device in Project Looking Glass?
Yes.
Is this something that they use only for the transmission of information, or can they transport a material object through time?
You know the answer to that. At least you probably heard some rumor. There have been mistakes. There were mistakes. Animals were attempted to transport from one location to another, the production of two of the devices, and they put them in resonance or something like that. I'm not a physicist. I don't know. But I was, in fact, present during a human attempt. The human did not survive. The human was not put in there under duress of any sort. It was a volunteer situation, and the human did not survive. The human did not move. The human stayed where the human was put. But the human changed, and I don't want to talk about it anymore.
This is an attempt at time travel?
It was an attempt at well, in essence, yes. It was a linear. It was a attempt to transport an individual over linear distance, which I understand is the same thing as time travel. If we're talking purely from the Einstein.
Translating time, space.
Distance is time.
Like a transporter?
Yeah. From what I understand, they've only used it for information purposes. Aside from that, how they get the information out of it, no clue. I don't know. What specific information they've obtained, I only know of one piece of information, and that is the rush, why the rush is underway to get Lotus done by the 2005 deadline. That in fact this group of J-rods that are not complying with the wishes of the committee and the wishes of the rest of the J-rods and the associated brothers, to put a clamp on them so that they stop their influence within the political structures of our government, including the financial structures. That it is in fact their slowing down of the progress to stopping getting these, picking up these little gates that were put together. That would be our downfall in 2012.
Okay. Do you want to say anything further about the Stargates? Or their use in 2012?
Well,
Историята на Дан Буриш е впечатляваща и ни кара да осъзнаем колко много неща остават скрити за хората. Правителството на САЩ притежава паднали извънземни кораби, както и пасажерите им, и се опитва да възстанови тези машини, за да ги приложи в нашия свят. Правим тази поредица, защото в САЩ от тази година има ясно поставена цел да се разсекрети информация, свързана с неидентифицирани летящи обекти и извънземните. Ако това се случи, е възможно светът да не е същия и да се промени завинаги. Ще продължаваме да следим темата и да ви предоставяме интересна информация. А ако това видео ви е харесало, то ви молим да натиснете палец нагоре и да го споделите с приятели. Epic Stories ви дава информация, която масовите медии не споделят. Ако искате да научавате още много интересни неща, то се абонирайте за канала ни, като натиснете бутона Subscribe. Натиснете и камбанката, за да получавате известия и да не пропускате нищо ново. Желаем ви усмихнат и приятен ден!